حني قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حني قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this gorgeous Saturday morning and also the 5th day of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah and Ramadan Kareem to one and all. It's great to be with you and what can I say? Time flies. I can't believe we're into the 5th day of this Mubarak month, and as always we have some amazing guests lined up for you. My dear friend Suraya Nawab from Islamic Careline will be talking family matters and Ramadan, how you put problems aside or how you address them in the month of Ramadan. We're also going to be talking to a very brave young mom who's going to be climbing Mount Kelly, all in the name of raising funds for an amazing project. You want to stay tuned to that part of the interview. But first up, we're going to talk to two ladies who are in studio with me, amazing ladies as well. The lovely Sandy Burmeister and Shanaz Badat. They're here to talk about early child care development, but very particularly about children with hearing impairments or speech impairments. Let's introduce you to the ladies and let them share their amazing story with us. Good morning, Sandy, and Assalamu alaikum, Shanaz.
Walaikum salam.
Good morning.
Sandy, you have a school which you run in the south of Johannesburg. It's early childhood development training that you do offer, but over and above of that, you've come up with a brilliant concept and you are wanting to teach, you want to train teachers to be able to teach at schools for deaf children or deaf people. But the teachers that you're wanting to train as well probably would be hard of hearing too.
Yes, we have classes where we've got hearing students, but we found too that there's a huge need for educators that are deaf to be educated and have the right qualification.
Will that work? A teacher with a hearing impairment,
Yes.
teaching a class of children with the same disability as him or herself?
I think that actually a person who has got a hearing impairment would actually be better to teach a child who is deaf because they're actually able to understand the child a lot quicker, because through sign language and so on, and they have a good understanding of where the child is coming from. So I think ideally it is better that we can educate people who are deaf to become educators so that they can go out and educate the deaf students or the deaf children.
You're running an early childhood development centre, as I've said, in the south of Johannesburg. Why have you decided to go this route now? Apart from your learning centre, you're now wanting to focus on an area which probably isn't all that well known or possibly even well advertised.
Yes, because I think I found that, as I said, a student came to visit me and said that she really would like to do this course, and she only had a grade 10, and therefore this would be the right course for her to come on, because at the moment she was just an assistant, because a lot of the deaf schools only go up to grade 10. So she therefore wanted to, come and she wanted to be an educator, but with only a grade 10, you can only be an assistant. So with our qualification, which is a level 4, she'll be on the same level as finishing a matric. Mm-hmm. And therefore she can then develop onto a level 5 and then eventually be able to do a degree and a diploma. So there's a huge need. We've just been looking at statistics and realizing that there are so many deaf people that are unemployed. Mm-hmm. So this provides a golden opportunity not only give them employment, but also for them to be able to open their own ECD centres,
Right.
the early childhood development centres, and to be able to give the deaf children the same opportunities as a hearing child.
I commend you for the initiative, but I also am going to come back to you and ask you, what are you doing, or what are the powers that be doing in terms of creating employment opportunities for not only people with hearing impairments, but any and everybody who has some form of disability. So mull over that whilst we get to Shana. Assalamu alaikum. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
You are at a school for the deaf in Lenasia. Tell us about it, and how come you're involved at the school?
I've been an educator for 20 years now. Deaf education has just been my passion, and I've taken it on from there. So the school that I'm teaching at is MCK Special School in Lenasia.
Normally when you have people involved in different initiatives, charities, specialized work, trying to get a very special message out into the public space about or any form of impairment, disability, difficulty, whatever it might be, they're in that space because they've had a personal experience, a loved one, or they've kind of encountered some sort of an experience with people with a disability. Yes. You've told me off air that you don't have anyone in your family who has a hearing impairment. So why did you decide to go into such a challenging field and have spent already 20 years of your life there?
Well, actually, I used to live nearby the school for the deaf, and these boys used to always wave at me, and I always wondered what it would be like to actually be at the school. So when I did qualify, the first place I applied for was at the school for the deaf. And it's just taken off from there. I have a passion for the deaf, and they are a different group of people to deal with. So they are so welcoming, and they are really, they hunger for knowledge, I should say. So they're absolutely fantastic compared to your mainstream children and learners.
Who take so much for granted. Mainstream or regular people take so much for granted.
They really do.
I think it takes a disability for someone close to you to realize how valuable and precious life is, and how we should appreciate all of our functioning limbs, etc. That being said, Shanaz, how challenging, because you qualified as a regular teacher.
That's correct.
And took on a position at a school for hearing impairment. How challenging was it, and how long did it take you before you kind of got into the swing of things, learning sign language and interacting with your learners?
Well, the first week at the school for the deaf was where the learners actually taught me the alphabet of the...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and amazingly enough, in the first week, I picked it up. So I think it's also just something that naturally came to me. And the communication thereafter, they teach you signs for words, so it was not that difficult at all. So I think it's just, I don't know why, but I just feel like I was built to do this because it's natural. So
it's a calling, isn't it?
It's definitely a calling. Mm-hmm. To do this type of teaching is definitely a calling. Every day, from the first day I've started, I thank the Almighty every day for everything that I have. Because if you have a look at these kids and how they struggle in society and the battles they have to overcome just to get where you would normally just take for granted, it's absolutely amazing.
Sandy, now you've just heard Shanaz's response, and I have put a question to you a little while ago about, are you engaging with the powers to be to try and make available more opportunities for people with hearing impairments or any disability for that matter? Where are you at as far as that is concerned? Because no doubt you are an activist in your own right.
Yes, well, we have been approaching, quite a few organisations and some education organisations as well. I think we have been having problems with actually, getting sponsorship for these learners, but we're persevering. But we're now in contact with the eDeaf, and they offer, if you're thinking about, they offer training for deaf students, and in all kinds of different disciplines. And they have people that specifically sponsors, that actually sponsor people as well. So there are quite a few organizations that are out there that do focus on people with disabilities. So that's a good thing. I think also in the schools now, with the policy of inclusion, not so much for the completely deaf people, but if people with disabilities are invited into the schools now. And then the challenges for our teachers now to be able to actually sort of teach to all the different, and I think that's a good thing, because I think it educates not only the people without disabilities, but with also the disabilities, it gives them the same opportunity for education. So I think that's a good thing.
And I think if there's this inclusion policy right across the board,
yes,
we as regular people would become more empathetic,
yes,
and
yes,
also do our bit to champion for people with disabilities in all walks of life.
Yes.
But let's go for an ad break. When we come back, I want to know how this association between the two of you has happened and how well is it working. Sandy Burmeister and Chinaz Badata are in studio this morning talking about a school for disabled, or rather deaf children, and also early childhood development. The big dream is to try and teach as many deaf people to become teachers so that they can connect with children with a hearing impairment. Don't go away, we'll be back with you in a minute or two. We're talking about early childhood development, and particularly about children with hearing disabilities, the opportunities, or are there enough centres to cater for children with this particular disability? How do you respond to that, Chinaz?
It is very difficult for the deaf currently to access higher education because their education level is already limited. Their literacy levels are limited, and at this point in time, most of them only get to finish grade 10. So they are out there. They really need this type of colleges and universities to be more open to them, because universities, you need certain subjects to get in there. It's only now that we've come up with the sign language curriculum where they can access university. But then again, the type of subjects that we do offer at deaf schools might not allow them access to universities. So colleges around the world should actually go in this route, because it gives them more access to becoming and obviously qualifying, becoming better people, because they really do. These learners that we currently have at the college are deaf assistants. So they've been in the education system for many years. They are just not qualified. And their salaries are obviously very bare minimum. So they don't have the money to study.
They don't have that piece of paper suggesting that they've got a qualification, so to speak, but they've got the practical knowledge, obviously with years and years of being in the area.
Yes.
How far are we as South Africa? How do we compare with the rest of the world as far as our schooling system and curriculum is concerned for deaf children?
Well, we just currently came up now. Last year was our first offset on the sign language curriculum, which now gives the deaf child 2 languages. So sign language is the home language and English is the home language. So English is the first additional language, which means that they have the 2 languages to access university. But which universities are actually available for our deaf?
Oh, yes. That's the million-dollar question.
That's the million-dollar question, because the subjects that we offer at deaf school do not have enough points for these learners to access. So WITS currently is like the only center that has a deaf center that actually they can access.
And what sort of qualifications would they come out out with from adverts, and how long will they be spending there?
So most of them adverts are actually doing courses that also relate to education and teaching of deaf people. They currently also have, if I'm not mistaken, also acting and all of those type of things, you know, the roles where they can play in acting, camera roles, all of those type of things where they can actually go and learn further. With the college that Madam Sandy has, these ladies were actually looking for a way in which they can qualify so that they could access university.
Wow, okay. So still as much effort as you guys are putting in and other such role players, the world of the deaf learner is still very, very small. Sandy, how did this partnership come into being? And going forward, what do you see emanating from this partnership?
Yes, well, as I said, we were looking, once we realized that there's such a need for to actually be training up the deaf students, I got in contact with a few of the schools, and MC Cabot was one of the really willing to speak to me and find out about it. And at one of the meetings there at MC Cabot, Shanaz was there. And so I was telling them all about the course and showed them the material. And Shanaz very eagerly sort of said that because I said, oh, what we really do need is somebody who is an educator and who can do sign language as well. Because also the person that I first met, the deaf lady, she can't lip read. And that's why we needed to have somebody who could actually do sign language.
Shanaz, going forward, you've been in this space, in this area for 20 years, and undoubtedly there's been a lot of progress, yes. But I should imagine lots of frustration and still lots of challenges. What are those?
Still lots of challenges. We're still facing lots of challenges. Literacy is still a challenge for the deaf. So currently, even our adult deaf, as they're sitting in their classroom, it's always a mission to get a message across to them because their literacy levels are that low.
Why is it that low? What can be done to up the literacy levels? Maybe volunteers can come on board, community workers, parents, family members.
I think if we had more parents' involvement. You see, the thing is that they need to grapple with language from the very beginning. So what happens is they're not in contact with language and they're not hearing the language.
Is it because the parents just don't know how to communicate with their deaf child, and then they just leave them thinking that when they go to school the teachers will deal with it, and then the child has been left with a very big gap in their lives?
That's it. So when this child is born, the parents doesn't know what to do, where to go, who to consult. And even though it's only now currently that all these doors are opening now in South Africa, whereas in America it was there at the beginning. As soon as you have a deaf child, we're going to teach you sign language and you're going to sign to your child. And later on from there, you will determine whether the child goes to a mainstream school or to a school for the deaf. In South Africa, no such thing. They only came up now recently with the test to do at hospitals to see if this little baby is deaf or not. So from there, it depends on the parents because the child is with the parents all the time.
Are there facilities then? Let's assume a child is born. They do the APGAR test on the child. It's found that the child is hard of hearing or totally deaf. What would be the second move as far as the parents are concerned? What ought they be doing to close that gap and give their child the best opportunity and the best chance at a very fulfilling life?
The parents need to know sign language themselves. So I think if the parents do know sign language themselves, then they're able to communicate much better with their child. So at the moment, there's high hopes, and they take on this responsibility where they call in a teacher, and there are also deaf people that come in and show you how to communicate with your little baby, and obviously the sign language that's involved. those children that come to us have language, and they have a background of language. So those children's literacy levels are much better than the ones that come to us with no language.
Okay, explain that to us, because I'm just wondering if our viewers will understand what are you talking about here. We're talking sign language, and we're also talking language. So just distinguish the two for us, please.
Okay, so the difference is sign language is the deaf baby's first language, because he cannot hear the sound.
And his communication too.
His communication obviously would be at pointing and signing. So what happens is, when I say language, he's not receiving the language, I should say, from the parent. So he's just growing up with this, okay, so I'm not listening to it. I can see the things, I can see the objects, but I'm not listening to it. So if you're going to say this is a cup, here's a cup, if you're signing it to him, he's learning the language.
So what you're saying is that apart from signing, you need to be verbalizing that communication to the child or the deaf person.
Yes. So what happens is they're coming to us currently with no language. So there's a gap.
Ooh.
So when they get to us at the preschool level, that's where the ECD comes in. The teacher has to give this child language. So it's basically vocab. We're supposed to fill this child with so much of vocab because he's already missed the first 5 years of vocab.
Undoubtedly, these children, I should imagine, become very frustrated because they're not understood at the best of times, and you don't understand what they're trying to get across, vice versa, both ways.
Yes.
Is it very difficult? Is it really challenging then to break down, and they might become very unruly in the classroom, disruptive, etc.? How do you contain all of that?
We have learners that have come to us with such problems because nobody at home understands them. So they come to school, and everybody at school, when they're at school, this is their platform where they let everything out. So we have those unruly learners. But we have systems in place where, if we've noticed that the learner is in this type of a situation, we have social workers that come in, we have audiologists, speech therapists that come in and help us to mold this child, to get a better understanding out of this child.
Because obviously frustration is an indication that the person or the child's not being heard.
That's correct.
And the only way they can act out is have a tantrum or be very, very frustrated. We've got 2 minutes to wrap up. What do you want to leave our viewers with?
I want to leave our viewers with the thought of, let's try and help these deaf learners access higher education, because that's what they need.
How do we do it? What do you want from us?
Sponsors, people who have centers that can help us to educate these, because there are people out there that have places and they don't know what to do with them. So we can educate the deaf. We can get more deaf learners into these centers.
And give them a better chance at life,
yes.
A fulfilling life.
Yes.
Sandy, to close off.
I think, just as I said, I think it's all about giving equal opportunities. And I think it's like colleges like ourselves should be opening up their centres to realise that it can be done for them, and it can be done for the deaf learners. So, I think that both of us feel there's a great vision, because it's not going to only be for the adult learners, but it will also be that it's going to affect the deaf children in the future.
And Shanaz, I'm sure you'd like to see your learners go on to Sandy's Early Development Centre and make a life for themselves going forward. Sadly, even though it's only in the field of education, but at least it's a start and it's getting their foot into supposedly mainstream life. That being said, let's talk about course fees, and what about people who can't afford to attend the early childhood development courses?
Okay, well, that's where I think what we have worked out for the deaf learners is that they can get, we've got a special price, and we've got them paying it over 18 months, so that it makes it more affordable for them. But as Shanaz has said, that there is very much a challenge, because these learners are not earning very much as it is. Mm-hmm. So, we would really appreciate it if we can get more sponsorship for these people, so we can really spread the word and get more people that are sitting at home possibly and could really get a good education and be a stepping stone to further education to really help us with this.
Well,
concept.
it is the holy month of Ramadan, the month of fasting for us as Muslims. It's a month of reflection. It's a month of introspection. It's a month of truly thinking about those less fortunate than ourselves. So here's an opportunity for people to dig deep into their hearts and their pockets and make a very, very valued contribution. Thank you indeed. Continue touching lives in the positive way that you do, and truly giving those people who may never, ever have had a chance of being heard and to hear, possibly a small window of opportunity of leading a regular or a normal life as possible. God be with you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your du'as, inshallah, and your efforts as well. Wonderful. Carry on with the good work. And there you have it, Sandy Burmeister and Shanaz Badat. They're talking about the early childhood development centres that Sandy runs in the south of Johannesburg, and they are now targeting children or young people with hearing disabilities. There is a future for them by way of attending these courses and making a normal life for themselves as possible. And Shanaz is at a deaf school in Lenasia teaching children with hearing impairments. Still to come on the show, we're going to talk to a mom who is going to be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and it's for an amazing course. She'll tell us all about it. And also Suraya Nawab from Islamic Care Line is going to talk family matters and Ramadan. Welcome back, and still to come in studio we have Tebogo Tsotetsi. She is a mom who has pledged to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, all in the name of a very, very worthy cause. She'll be joining us in a short while, but right now we do have Suraya Nawab from Islamic Care Line. We're going to be talking family matters and Ramadan, so do stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program, and Ramadan Mubarak to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you once again for having Islamic Care Line.
Now, Ramadan is a month, we talk about the 10 days of mercy, the 10 days of forgiveness, and the 10 days of asking for salvation. So it's cut up in three, quarters. But the point, when we talk Ramadan, we look forward to this month. We look forward to new beginnings. We look forward to changes. We look forward to changing bad habits, and we're hoping that the habits are going to hold us in good stead for the next year.
Yes.
But most of our lives are very troubled. We all have family dynamics going on. There's a lot of dysfunctionality. There's a whole host of issues going on in all of our lives.
Yes.
Ramadan doesn't mean that we're putting those issues on hold.
Or that it just goes away.
We'd like to believe that in the name of Ramadan, let's put aside these issues. Let's focus on the spirituality. Let's grow as human beings. And after Ramadan, we can then address those situations. But it doesn't happen that way. And if we do that, that situation might be completely out of control. So how do we start? How do we have how do we try and keep some peace, calm and stability and sensibility in our relationships in the month of Ramadan?
Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Interestingly, from everything you've said, and it's absolutely correct, that just because it's Ramadan, issues in the home or in between couples or between families doesn't just go away, right? It's there and it stays there. But interestingly for us, and I've just yesterday while I was at the office just glanced through some of the data captured that we have over the years, and there's a trend that maybe it should be looked at in more detail, and that is that during Ramadan, our caseload actually decreases. Okay? So, and as you mentioned, there may be various reasons for that. And for me, I think it's just that people have this sense of calmness on the one hand, and want that peace and tranquility in their lives. And so they focus more on the spiritual. Also, I think people who are in troubled relationships actually consciously put a lot of hope in that I'm going to be fasting, I'm going to be praying Taraweeh, I'm going to be praying more Salah, I'll make more zikr, I'll read the Quran more often. So hopefully Allah is going to help me to overcome this. The problem is that when one person starts doing this and the other is not reciprocating, or there is no communication to the extent that, look, Ramadan is coming, I know I'm wrong, I have issues, we have issues in this marriage. Can we focus on our praying together and our being together and the spirituality that this month brings in to help and guide us? That would be the ideal, where a couple would, or a family would sit down and say, look, Ramadan is coming. Like from Sunday, there were all these make me laugh messages just going around. And
right after Ramadan, we forget about it, don't we?
Exactly. And for me, once that comes, and if somebody is really concerned about the relationship that is dysfunctional in their homes, then a message like that would be like, you're not paying just lip service to somebody to say, I'll forgive you now for Ramadan because I'm fasting and I'm praying and whatever. But you know what, let's make this a new beginning. And so the cases that do come in, especially new cases or ongoing cases, the few that we have that come in as new cases, I think for me that would be what the counselors should be inculcating, because it will internalize their whole purpose during Ramadan. We know that charity is a big thing in Ramadan, and a simple thing like just spouses smiling at each other.
That's a charity.
It's a charity, And so for me, I would like the difference between Islamic care line counseling in a spiritual way, or having a spiritual agenda about the counseling, would be to empower or to enable the counselors to be able to use Ramadan as a catalyst for troubled relationships, to use it and say that there's a special mercy in Ramadan, and don't let it just wash away with coming to nothing. You're going to be praying, you're going to be fasting. Allah doesn't only want our hunger and thirst, because without the true meaning of it, and without internalizing the spirituality which Ramadan signifies, our hunger and thirst mean nothing. So I think the actions are important. However, I also think that there are many, many opportunities. Ramadan is a special time for reflection and introspection into your life and who you are and what you are and your relationship with Allah. And we know that relationships in terms of spouses and marriages, your nikah is actually a form of ibadah. And so if you're going to go into Ramadan and go into all the actions that you take on in Ramadan in terms of your own spirituality and your own growing in taqwa and closeness to the Almighty, then and you bring in constantly this dua that Allah save me, or Allah help me through this difficulty that we're having, or help us, I think people would look at it in a much more positive light, because they would somehow feel more hopeful. And when spouses are both angry, for example, if there's a severe marital discord and they're both angry, and if each of them can, for themselves, do it for themselves, and it sounds very selfish that I want to be a better person, I want to be closer to Allah, then I think it's going to be so much more meaningful for them to be. And of course, Allah we know that the shaitans are all tied up, and we know all those things. So basically, it's the nafs, our own desires, that stop us from doing what is good and what is best for the relationship. And hopefully, the fasting, just the act of fasting itself, can bring compassion and acceptance and kindness in your heart.
Now, let's talk about troubled relationships, whether it be between husband and wife or
Family members,
siblings, parents-in-law, outlaws, etc. We all try to put our best foot forward in the month of Ramadan because we are hungry for the sawab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know that the mercies from Allah in this month is 100-fold.
Yes.
Any good deed, the mercy or the sawab for that is 100-fold. But if relationships, are so tenuous and they break down, and they're so bad, there's a lot of angst between the people. What would be the best way? Because I should imagine there's a mercy in also separating in kindness or breaking ties in kindness and respect.
There are two things in what you've just said. The one is trying to continue being in this painful situation in kindness.
And also just remember, if there is a troubled relationship, it's not only the two people that suffer.
It's the whole family.
The extended family, because it impacts on everybody very negatively. There's a horrible sense of negativity and heaviness in that home.
I think to be proactive, I think the ideal thing would be to, first of all, accept that we have a problem in our family and say that instead of saying, it's Ramadan now, we don't have time for anything else and nothing else matters and let's just put it aside and wait, it won't go away. In fact, I think it will compound the anger and anxiety.
Because obviously you're fasting, you're hungry, you've got a headache, you're having withdrawal symptoms from whatever, the sugars and all of that.
And that's another thing I want to touch on is how do you handle people who are just irritable in Ramadan just because they're hungry and because they're having these withdrawal things and all that. So we should remember to just touch on that because that's also a very important thing. Because normal people who normally don't display this sort of behavior, when they're fasting, they become really crabby. And unfortunately, and maybe it's a gross generalization here, it's mostly males.
Well, a lot of males do smoke cigarettes as well.
And so they have that withdrawal. But we'll talk about that. In terms of the relationship, I think just saying that, you know what, it's Ramadan now and let's just get a hang of whatever and let's just carry on being who we are and we'll sort it out after Ramadan. That is a cop-out.
All right.
That for me is being a coward. That for me is actually not making use of the blessings of this month.
Oftentimes, when you're in a situation like that where there is a problem that needs to be resolved amongst families, and obviously it is families, then in Ramadan you get the elders or people, well-meaning siblings in the family that says, it's Ramadan, put your differences aside, focus on spirituality, ask Allah for guidance, etc. And that's just kind of suppressing. And I think that too can lead to a huge blowout, which would probably cause more harm or more damage than addressing the issue head on. And when I say addressing the issue head on, I am suggesting with kindness and due respect.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, think about this. If you wanting to increase your level of taqwa and spirituality and closeness to Allah, and you're sitting with this heavy heart, how easy is it going to be for you to do that? Because we are human beings. We're going to be distracted by that. And once you have that heaviness in you, you think you're really going to be very open on that musalla? You think your zikr is really going to be free of any pain or heartache? It can't. I don't think anybody is as strong enough to be able to separate it to that level. And so the best thing would be, and most importantly for me, is that I would rather take advantage of the blessings that this month has. So you say to each other, or you say as a family, we know we're having this. We know we need to address it. And we know that Ramadan is a month of goodness. It's a month of compassion. It's a month of acceptance. It's a month of forgiveness and mercy. and let us not lose hope in the mercy of Allah, but let us sit together and say, and maybe when people are fasting, while they're fasting and while they are in this sort of spiritual space, maybe they'll see more goodness in the relationship in terms of trying to resolve the issues. So it's not about seeing goodness and saying, okay, it's Ramadan, so we'll just be together for the while and we'll make a home because it's Ramadan. It's not that. It's about, as you say, mercy and kindness, and say what is the best for us to do right now.
And I think last year, this time as well, we spoke about in Ramadan the concept of forgiveness.
Yes.
And oftentimes you hear people saying, they may say to you, when you ask for maafi in Ramadan and Shab-e Barat and Laylatul Qadr, that's when we ask everyone whom we believe we've hurt or we've wronged, please make me maaf, it won't happen again, whatever have you. But then, behind your back, or possibly even directly to you, they'd say, I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget what you've done. So let's touch on all of that right after the ad break, inshallah. Suraya Nawal from Islamic Care Line is in studio. And of course, you do know that we at ITV have a partnership with Islamic Care Line. We get together with them at least once a month, right here on Let's Talk, to discuss family matters. So here she is talking about issues and how we deal with family matters in the month of Ramadan. Right after the ad break, we'll be picking up on the conversation.
How do you address them?
Welcome back to the 5th Mubarak day of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful that here we are in good health with our loved ones celebrating yet another Ramadan. But we also have to be realistic, and we also have to own up to issues in our lives, be it with our spouses, our children, our in-laws, our friends and our neighbors. This is the time to truly forgive and to move on. Not to say I forgive, but I'll never forget, but to forgive, inshallah, and to move on. So let's pick up on that, Suraya.
Okay, so we know that we are all so sinful in everything we do, or I should take responsibility myself. And so we actually look at Ramadan as a way in which we can redeem ourselves to some extent, or to a large extent. And so I think forgiveness plays a big part. And we always hear in our communities and our families, if the person doesn't forgive you, then Allah won't forgive you. You need to first ask for forgiveness from the person who you've harmed, so to say, and then Allah will forgive you.
As a counselor, when people come to you with this concept and say, he's hurt me so badly, I will never ever forget what he's done to me. I will forgive him, but I'll never forget, or I will never forgive him. What's going on inside of that person? Why are they so bitter? And how, as a counselor, do you help them get past that hurt and that bitterness?
Okay, so there are a lot of processes that you use within counseling in terms of a special formats of, there's a lot of paperwork that you do in terms of getting a person to that stage. But for me, forgiving somebody is actually a favor to yourself, because you free yourself.
Explain
Think about
that.
it.
People often, I understand it because I found that when I'm really angry and I really want to tell someone off, and then I make peace with myself about it, I feel so much better. I don't have that anger welling up inside of me.
Exactly. You don't have that knot in your stomach that is always there. And you'll never really truly feel happy. One very easy way of doing it is, if you can truly from your heart forgive somebody and realize that I'm doing this for myself, to free myself of whatever pain I'm feeling, you'll feel that lightness. You actually feel that lightness on your shoulders. And the next time you speak to that person, you would actually be happy to speak to that person. Whereas if you just say it it's just in a manner of speaking, and you don't really mean it, and you're still walking around or going around with this weight in your heart and your belly, then even when you meet that person, or when you speak to that person, you're not going to have an easy conversation. Because you always have that at the back of your head. So for me,
and they can pick up the tension within you.
I mean,
yes.
you can pick up negative vibes between people, that's what I'm saying. Forgiving somebody is actually a favor to yourself. You're freeing yourself. You're not freeing that person. A person who asks for forgiveness. Also, another thing is a person who asks for forgiveness just with an SMS or a WhatsApp, blanket WhatsApp, for me, it would just be water under the bridge, right? But if a person really knows that I've really heard, Julie, about a certain incident, and you would address it with that person directly and say, I know the relationship between us has been strained, and I know we can have a better relationship, but I feel sad that it has come to this, and I'd really ask you to forgive me for my shortcomings in the matter. And if you know that you are both at fault somewhere, then to say that I hope you can do the same to me. You understand? So you be honest and you be open. I mean, I had an incident last week, right, from a work colleague. And I got up on Sunday morning and I read a very philosophical piece on Ramadan and spirituality and this forgiveness thing. And I thought about it for a little while, and just, not that I'm an angel and I'm just giving it as an example.
Sure.
About how I felt, because you said to me, explain this to viewers. I immediately, before I even realized it, because the words that I read touched something within me. And I said, no, I cannot go into Ramadan because feeling like this about this person, because my hunger and thirst will never be blessed by Allah. Allah doesn't want me to be hungry and thirsty. What for? If I can't make peace, honestly, with somebody. And I messaged her, and that's the example I want to give. Because immediately when she called back, it was, and this is a long time colleague, so we know each other pretty well. And it was just like such a weight off my shoulders, and it felt so good that even what we were stuck with in work suddenly moved ahead. And that is a barakah from Allah.
What about if you and I've had a misunderstanding, a really bad misunderstanding, or you did something to hurt me, and you walk into my home, greet me, I return the greeting, but I don't make eye contact and I walk away. Thereafter, now it's the beginning of Ramadan. I don't necessarily ask for maaf for that bad behavior of mine, but I invite you over for a meal and just carry on as per normal. Is that good enough, or do you have to really ask for forgiveness for that misdemeanor?
Okay, so from a Sharia point of view, I'm not an expert on that, so I'll talk about it from a general relationship point of view. Again, I don't think you're going to, right now it may be like it's okay, I spoke to her and we smiled and we chatted about something and she came over.
And it's over.
And it's over. But at some point in your life, you're going to have that guilt. And guilt is actually, listen to this, guilt is actually anger that you direct to yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Because guilt eats you up.
It's toxic. It's
toxic. And it will bring up emotions of anger in you. Why? Because you're angry at yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think
it's people who beat
up
on themselves all the time because they believe they're not good enough. So then they're angry all the time because they've got self-esteem issues.
Yes. You are actually the better person for stretching your hand out. Think about it, and remember, you're not doing it for the other person, you're doing it for yourself. I just want to touch on what you asked earlier in terms of counseling. So we do have couples where, even family members, where this happens, where people are stuck and saying, you know what, it's so bad that I cannot forgive her. What we then do is we would separate the spouses and counsel the spouse that is finding difficulty in letting go in terms of the forgiveness, counsel them separately. And it takes a long while. And as I say, there are different interventions that can be used to make them see the benefits of actually forgiving the next person.
And very especially in this Mubarak month of Ramadan.
Absolutely. So that's why I'm saying I would want the counselors of Islamic Care Line to actually use this month to actually motivate their clients to either come to some agreement to part amicably or to build on their relationship and strengthen it in whichever way it is, whether it's between a couple or family members or whoever, because the world doesn't stop turning once it's Ramadan. So you need to carry on with your life. But I think Ramadan, and again, the power of intention. If you're going to go into Ramadan with the intention that I want to be closer to Allah, I want to clear a lot of dead weed between me and whoever, and you go in it with the proper intention of using the special mercy and the special hope and the special forgiveness that is in this month. And we do all pray more, we do all make zikr more, we pray more salah, we do qiyam al-layl, we'll do a lot of things which we out of Ramadan don't do. I think there will be so much of more blessing in the relationship that they're trying to settle between them.
Inshallah. You know? But if things get so bad, and even though it's the month of Ramadan, like I said right at the outset, then rather part in mercy, forgiveness and kindness. Because there too, there'll be a lot of barakah
in it and
in that separation. With about just under 3 minutes to wrap up time, the issue around irritability and, you know, some people behave like they're fasting for the whole world and it's your fault that I'm having to fast. It's your fault that I'm irritable.
And as I said before, it's people who are normally very happy and they just don't manage the fast. And we're lucky that right now for the few years we have very short fasts, but it happens more in the summer months when the fasts are very long and things like that. But it also happens now during the short fast when people just, for some reason, as you say, one of the reasons may be that they normally they're smokers and now they're having these withdrawals.
Or you don't sleep well, or broken sleep,
you have
and a whole host of issues.
So people just don't cope. So I think if you are lucky enough to know that person in your family that tends to be this way or tends to behave this way in Ramadan, because over the years you've realized that it may be a son or a daughter or a spouse or whoever, uncle, brother, whoever, sister, whoever, to address it before Ramadan and say, you know, you normally become a bit grumpy and irritable
or unreasonable
in Ramadan. So let's talk about how are we going to help you to be able to manage your fast easier and in a peaceful way, so that it brings goodness to you and everybody else. Because when you do behave like that, you may not realize it, but you get all of us worked up at the same time. So please, let's talk about it. So I think opening up that conversation. So the long and short of it is that if you know somebody who has this tendency, then there's a before Ramadan, during Ramadan and after Ramadan. So before Ramadan, you talk about this. During Ramadan, you act on it. So when you're talking about it, basically communicating about it. So remember when we spoke about this, you said you're going to go away to the masjid once you start, or you're going to go and have a nap. You know, if it's in between Salah time or something. So I'm going to remind you. So in Ramadan, when that person comes up, remember what we rather go and have a nap. You know, so what I'm saying is you're acting on it. You're not just leaving it.
Don't pretend it's not happening.
And don't pretend, because it's going to get worse. Then after Ramadan, you again have a look and say, this Ramadan was much better. Or did it get worse? Or why didn't it work? You know, so I think it's a work in progress, you know, and people, it's just personalities, I think. And also in terms of compassion and kindness and things like that, we also need to be a bit softer on them. So then you also look at yourself. You look at yourself and say, you know what, he's in that mood. Let me just carry on going to make my salah or going to put up my food or whatever. around that. So you also remove and you say to them, I think you're in a bad mood.
And so you're taking time out.
So you know what? I'm going to leave you until you feel a bit better. Let me go into the kitchen, or let me go and read my salah or something.
Before we wrap up, a very important question. You alluded to the fact that your stats at Islamic Care Line indicates that in Ramadan your caseload goes down for a whole. You're not quite sure what the reasons are, but it could be because it is a very Mubarak month. However, please just reiterate to our viewers that doesn't mean that you don't call in if you have a problem.
No, definitely not. And as we said, I mean, there are issues, there are problems. The stats are there, but they're just a bit lower. And I think a lot of the reasons may be that people are more calmer because you're not having such a full belly all the time, so you don't have that much of energy. Also praying together, it's and meals together. A lot of times during the year, because people are so busy and kids are at university or not home on time or extramurals, families are not eating together, having meals together, and it's getting more and more so. It's becoming more and more prevalent. But in Ramadan, at Sehri, it's that time that everybody will be on the table and eat together. At Iftar. So I think those are some of the things that actually bond families. It's that time. There's no television in most homes. There's no television. So there's no, but social media is something which you can do on your own in the privacy of your own room or space or something. And I think people who want to be serious about this need to limit the time. I see a lot of people leave chats and groups and
yes, I've noticed that as well.
Yeah, so I think the one very funny thing came up on one of my chats yesterday. They said Shaitan left the group. So I think just, I think to limit that as well and use that quality time when we do have to be together and pray together and eat together. And
maybe you come in again later on in Ramadan, but just finally, so you are going to just remind our viewers, if you have the need to talk to someone, Islamic Care Line is up and running during Ramadan. You are there for the people.
Yes, the counsellors are there, staff members are there. The number is 011-373-8080. You can call anytime.
And just let off steam with the counsellors.
Yes, maybe it's better off to do that.
Jazakallah for being with us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your efforts.
Ameen.
Everyone at Islamic Care Line as well, and may it be one of the best Ramadans ever, inshallah.
Ameen, alhamdulillah. Ameen.
That was Suraya Nawab from Islamic Care Line talking to us about family matters in the month of Ramadan. It can't be put on hold, it needs to be addressed, and if you can't address it in a family environment, then Islamic Care Line are a phone call away to help you address those issues. Still to come, we're going to talk to a mom who is preparing to go on a trek on Mount Kilimanjaro. And welcome back to a morning of amazing women. We started out by talking to Sandy and Shanaz about a school for people with hearing impairments. Then we spoke to Suraya Nawab, the senior counsellor at Islamic Care Line, about conducting ourselves in the proper manner during the month of Ramadan. And now we talk to a mother who's thinking of hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro, all in the hope of raising huge sums of money, and she's going to tell us why. Her name is Teboho Tsotetsi, and she's in studio. She's also busy studying psychology, but let's get her to tell us the story, where she's at in her life right now, and why she's taking on this very daunting task. A brave woman indeed, wanting to hike up Mount Kilimanjaro, summit it, I should imagine, hopefully. Welcome to the program. I think it's a very, very noble effort on your part. What is the story? Let's first start with you. What do you do in real life?
Okay, firstly, thank you for having me on your show. What I actually do now in real life, I'm just still studying psychology. I was working and then I left my job just to pursue my psychology career because I did my degree a few years ago, and then psychology keeps calling my name again. So I'm going back, I've went back, and then I'm furthering my studies, doing my honors in psychology.
Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
A terrible event happened in your life. And I'm wondering, we'll get to the event in a minute or two, and that event has spurred you on and has brought you onto this path of your life where you are thinking of hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro. But being a psychology student, did that aid you in any way or in a big way in getting over that huge challenge that you faced?
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, sometimes they usually say that when you are a doctor, you cannot cure yourself, you know. So I
or
think
doctors aren't meant to be getting sick.
Yes, you know. So I think that's what happened in my life. You know, I just the thing was just so real to us. There's no mother who'd want to get through that situation. You know, you cannot actually get over the fact that you lost a son in an incident, and then the other one is in ICU. You just cannot even know how to deal with it psychologically. So, but you know, by the help of our family members and by the help also of the church members as well, the support structure that we got at that time, I think it's what really got us through that moment.
So psychology went out the window. You just needed the warmth and the moral support of the people closest to you. What happened? That sounded like the most horrific and devastating thing to happen to any mother.
Yeah. It was a Friday night on the 18th of July, 2014. And we were from church, my two sons and my husband. And coming back from church, it was around 11:30. It was some concert that we went to attend. So coming back from home, and then the kids were already asleep in the car. So we put them in their bedroom, and then because it was such a very cold night that day, so we just warmed up their bedroom and then just turned on the heater for about maybe 5 or 10 minutes while we were still busy changing onto our pajamas. So that 10 minutes was just a bit too late for us. When my husband went back to check on their bedroom, just to switch off the lights and then switching off the heater, and then he found that there was smoke and then there was fire in their bedroom. Yeah. So he just tried to push the door, and then from there we managed to get them out, and then we rushed them to the nearest hospital. So sometime later, when when the insurance people come, they just want to investigate that what caused the fire and all that. So during that time, there was just a whole lot of load shedding, and then when the power came back, apparently like it went up with such a high surge. Yes, the high voltage there, you know. So that's what happened. That's what actually caused fault in the plug, the heater plug. So the heater just burst, and then. So that's what actually happened.
In the blink of an eye, you as a family and you as a mother, your worst nightmare ever became a reality in your life. Your husband kicked down the door, tried to save the kids, rushed the kids to hospital. How old were the kids at the time, and what happened next?
Okay, my firstborn by that time was 4 years old, and then the young one was 2 years old. So we actually 2 days later we lost the younger child. We lost our younger son, but he was not so injured. He was not more injured than Molemo. It was just small percentage of burn injuries on him.
Probably smoke inhalation.
Yes, so the doctor said it was just smoke inhalation on him.
Were you at his bedside when it happened?
Because they were both in ICU that time, so as they were busy with him, the doctors were just busy with him. They just asked us to be outside, because I think they tried about 2 or 3 times just to bring him back. Like they won the first time, and then he just went away again, and then they brought him back again, you know. So it was just one moment that I would not even want to think about, or that it was just something so difficult at that time for us.
So they couldn't resuscitate him,
unfortunately. So they couldn't, they tried twice, and then the third time, and then, that's when it happened.
What was going through your mind when you were given the devastating news that the doctors couldn't save him?
I felt like taking his place, you know. I just asked God so many questions, that why him? He had a whole life ahead of him. And I kept on asking him that, just bring him back, and instead just take me, you know.
So you're busy bargaining with God.
Yes. Yeah, so a whole lot of things were just happening in my mind, and then at the very same time again, I just had to be strong for the sake of Molemo, who was still in ICU at that time. And just saying that, you know what, like if he wakes up to this, because he was in an induced coma at that time. So just telling myself that if he wakes up to this and then finding his mother being gone or his brother being gone, how is he going to react in all of this, you know? So the only thing that kept me at that time was just to be strong for the sake of Molemo.
How old was he at the time?
Molemo was 4 years old.
Okay, and what was the extent of his injuries?
50% burn injuries.
Third-degree burns?
Yes.
So here you're looking at Molemo, your surviving child. What were you thinking to be strong for this child and obviously for the rest of the family, because at that point in time funeral arrangements were having to be made and also having to contend with insurance people because they would try everything they can possibly to not pay out. I know it sounds harsh and careless, but they would look for negligence on your part. So how did you deal with all of that?
You know, fortunate enough, the people who came in, the insurance people who came in at that time, when they arrived there, I think they said a week ago, it also happened to them. So it was so easy for them to understand, to be in our shoes, and just to understand and process the whole thing. We just never even struggled with the insurance people, you know. But at the very same time, as we were busy arranging for the funeral, because we know that Molemo was more injured than Kutlwano. So I was busy arranging for the funeral, the site, and busy holding my phone, just waiting for that call. You know, I was just scared. It was just a very scary moment, just busy waiting for that call that anytime the doctors could call and tell us something more bad, you know.
Were you kind of expecting that he might not make it?
Not expecting, but I was just hoping that at least he would make it, you know. I was just hoping, because at the same time we were scared. The doctors and ourselves were not looking that Kutlwano would pass on. The doctors were concentrating more on Molemo because he was more injured than the one who passed on, you know. So it was such a very scary moment for us at that time, busy arranging the funeral and then busy thinking about Molemo, who's in ICU, that the doctors said that this one is more worse than the other one. So we just kept on praying and hoping that he would make it, and by God's grace, he made it.
Absolute heartbreak, because you had to bury your one son. At the same time praying absolutely fervently that God saves your second son. Let's go for an ad break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this amazing mission that you're on. A truly strong woman. She's been through a nightmare experience, something that we wouldn't wish on our worst enemies. No mother should have to go through something like this. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom and mercy, tests us in different ways. So here is Tebogo talking about her story, but she has decided to turn the situation around. She can't bring her dead son back, but she can and is going to be doing something for her second son who survived the fire. He had suffered 50% burn wounds all over his body, and she wants to bring hope into his life and hope into the lives of other burn victims. So don't go away. The amazing Tebogo Tsotetsi is here talking to us about her mission in life. She wants to climb Mount Kilimanjaro for a very, very special and specific purpose. She shared her story in the first part of the interview, the sad and tragic incident which robbed her of her baby son in a fire at home. Her second son suffered 50% third-degree burns to his body, and here she is wanting to turn that situation around. So then you buried your baby son, and what was your second son's recuperation like?
Molemo was in hospital for about 3 months, and he was in ICU actually for about 2.5 months or so. And then in hospital as a whole, he just stayed there for about 3 months. So when he just got out of the hospital, when he was discharged, we were just scared and worried that how we're going to tell him, because...
You still hadn't told him that his little brother had died?
Yes, because he was in an induced coma for about 2 months.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so by the time he woke up, and then he kept on asking where his little brother was. He remembered the night. He remembered that they came together in an ambulance, and then he kept on asking. And it was difficult for the nurses to tell him that your brother is passed on, you know. So the nurse kept on saying to us that, you know what, you need to find a way of telling him, because if he goes back home and then he finds his brother not being there, I don't know how you're going to deal with that. So
he might be very angry at you for not sharing the information.
Yeah. So we eventually told him right in hospital. But because he was just a 4-year-old, I don't think that he really understood at that time, you know, until I prayed about it and just asking God to give us wisdom on how to deal with this. So just 2 days before he was discharged from the hospital, he had a dream. And in that dream, he dreamt of his little brother. Oh. And he dreamt of a man who was with his little brother. And that man, apparently said in that dream, that man set him on his lap and then set Kutlwano on the other lap and told him that, you know what, I came and I just want to tell you that I came to fetch Kutlwano, but don't worry, I'll be here with you as I am with Kutlwano at the very same time. Wow. You know. So I think that dream was just something that really, you know, that settled everything for us. Mm-hmm. Because when we asked him that, do you know who the man was in the dream, he just said that, no, the man introduced himself to me as Jesus. So, yeah, so that's what happened. And after some time, like, he was never even sorrowful about this. The only time when we talk about Kutlwano is when we share those good memories that we had with him. Never in a sorrowful manner where he would just be sorrowful about Kutlwano. He would just only say that I miss him so much today. You know, that those days where it happens, I miss him so much today, you know, today it's much better. Or he would just tell me that today it's worse than yesterday, I miss him and all that. But we would just sit down and share the good memories that we had with him. And
all right, so he suffered 50% third-degree burns to his body. He must have looked a terrible sight when you took him home. What was going through your mind in terms of him healing from all of those horrible scars, which brings you to this point in your life? Yes. So what were the processes that happened thereafter to help him heal?
He went because in hospital they did a skin grafting on him. And also he went through several processes where he had to, like for skin reconstruction, all sorts of things, you know, like he just went through so many things at the same time. And he also went through a laser treatment. I just made research that can this thing be done, can something be done about this actually, you know. So that's when I found the Avella Foundation. That's when I found out about that's when I found out about this scar removal laser machine. And now he has at least received 3 laser sessions so far.
I understand there's only one such machine in all of Africa. Yes. Just one machine in the whole of Africa. Yeah. Where is the machine? What are the costs involved? And what's the criteria if someone has got horrible scars to go for the specialized treatment? Okay,
the machine is based in Cape Town, Red Cross Children's Hospital. And what actually happened is that I directly wrote to Avella Foundation because I didn't know that you had to go through via the hospital procedures. So I wrote to Avella Foundation, and Avella assisted me to get space in the Red Cross Hospital. But the procedure is that you need to get a referral maybe from your local hospital. Right. Yes, in order for you to go and receive the treatment there.
How effective is the treatment?
Very much effective, because as you know that with people with burn injuries, the skin becomes a bit rigid, it becomes a bit stiff. So with the machine, what actually happens is that the machine penetrates right inside, and then it opens pores and then gets deep and removes the dead cells, and then regenerates again the new cells, so that it becomes easy for the skin to heal on its own.
And does it work for children only or for adults as well?
I think it works for both, but for now, Red Cross Children's Hospital is just for children, you know.
Okay.
So
now, there's only one machine in the country,
Yes.
in the whole of Africa. You've decided to take it on yourself to raise funds for another machine. Where's the machine going to be based? How much do you need, and how are you going about raising funds?
Okay, the machine is going to be based at Bara. We are going to donate the
Baragwanath
machine
Hospital.
to Baragwanath Hospital, and we need to raise about 2 million rands to get the machine the site. So how are we raising this? It's a team of 12 people. Each of us have got a certain portion that we've got to raise. So myself, on my side, I've got to raise about 75,000 rands, and so far I've only managed to raise about 25,000 rands, somewhere
get
there.
there.
Yes, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
who are the other role players, and why are they involved with you to raise
Okay.
money for this machine?
Some of the people, a team from the Avela Foundation,
Okay.
and some doctors, and it's not only people. Yeah, it's not only people from South Africa. We've got, I think, 2 or 3 people again from overseas who are assisting us to do this. You know, they'll be joining us to the Kilimanjaro summit.
So when is the big day, and how, in terms of your physical fitness and preparation, what is in place? When is the big day, number one? And then talk to us about your regime, your exercise regime.
Okay. We're leaving on the 17th of July, and then we'll be coming back, June, sorry. We'll be leaving on the 17th of June, and then coming back on the 25th of June. So yeah, I've been training a lot, and using Klipperverberg for my training, and then other than Klipperverberg, and then doing a lot of treadmill, and just getting my feet stronger for this. Yes.
I presume you're following a special diet as well.
Exactly.
Because you've got to build up all of the energy levels,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah.
What sort of weight are you going to be carrying with you as you summit or climb up Kilimanjaro?
About 8 kg.
8 kgs.
Yes.
And that's all the equipment that you're going to
That's
need
all
as
the
you go up.
equipment that I'll be needing.
What do you foresee as challenges taking this on?
Yeah, challenges. Yeah, the first time around when I started training, because I used to be bigger than this.
Okay.
Yeah, so at least it has assisted me to lose some weight, and then just getting to adjust into doing that. And one of the challenges again was that, just that fear at the back of my mind, not knowing what to expect. I've never done this before in my life. It's my first summit ever. So it was just that thing at the back of my mind that I wonder how is it like, and then am I going to be able to do this?
You know you will.
Yeah, definitely. But at least I've overcome that, and then I'm getting ready now.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So it's not too long. The countdown will start in a short while.
Yes.
How can people contribute to this amazing, worthy cause, which hopefully you're going to get the monies together and get this laser machine installed at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital? How do people get in touch with you
Okay.
or the foundation?
All right. We're raising funds through Back a Body crowdfunding. So when people want to donate, they can just go to Back a Body crowdfunding and search for Avela Foundation there, and they'll see it's just the list of us there, 12 of us there, and then they can just donate.
And I have no doubt in my mind people are going to donate very, very
Yes.
generously, because it's going to be servicing an entire community here in South
Yes.
Africa at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital.
Definitely.
In terms of altitude, what sort of preparation has been in place?
Sure, yeah, I've been doing more staircases,
Yes.
climbing stairs a lot, and then just through the training in the Klipperverberg as well, just trying the altitude, just reaching to the highest peak there, and then just getting my altitude ready there, just by training there.
Well, we do hope that when you get back, you're going to come in and talk to us again, tell us
Yes.
about your successes, talk to us about the climb,
Yes.
and also the amazing amount of money you've raised. In closing, what do you want to leave our viewers with? Firstly, on the loss of a loved one, and the raising and the climbing of Kilimanjaro to raise much needed funds for an amazing machine at the hospital?
Okay, firstly, losing a child is not an easy thing, especially to parents. So I just want to talk to parents out there who have lost their kids, maybe out of fire, or it might be out of anything, you know, that you don't have to stay there and be a victim out of everything that has happened. But you just, at some point, you need to rise up and just do something about it. Just get courage. If it takes you to just go and seek for counseling, just do that, you know. There's just help out there. Just meet with other mothers as well who have went through the same thing, you know. Because
did you attend a support group?
We actually have formed the support group.
Okay,
you know,
wonderful.
Yes, I'm heading the support group, mother-to-mother support group. It's called You Matter, and it's a mother-to-mother support group of mothers who have went through the very same thing that I went through. It's either through a loss or children who have burn injuries as well. So we've got the mother-to-mother support. It's still on pilot phase, and we're still busy doing it at Baragwanath Hospital.
Wonderful. And
yes,
they do have a website. We can just search for it, I presume.
Yes, under Smile Foundation.
Under the Smile Foundation.
Yes.
Brilliant. And good luck to you from all of us here at ITV and
so
our
much.
viewers. We will be rooting for you, and we hope and pray you come home safely. We know you're going to Summit.
Definitely.
And please do come back and share the story with us.
I will definitely do. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
My pleasure, and
Thanks.
God bless.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the show. What a heartbreaking and heartwarming story by Tebogo Totetsi, having lost a son, and she's gone, and a second son who suffered 50 degrees burns to his body, 3rd-degree burns. She's now gone on to turn this into a positive. She's going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro to raise funds for this amazing machine, which costs about 2 million rands, which she wants to have installed at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. On that note, we come to the end of the show. Thank you so much for your company. Thank you to the amazing women that joined us on the show this morning. Till Wednesday at the same time. As always, please take care on the roads and continue enjoying a very, very spiritual Ramadan, inshallah. And as always, a big thank you to the production team. And it is Assalamu alaikum and Khudafiz from me, Julie Alli.
يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا